Hello, I have a story about ships today. In the old days, before ships were made of iron and steel, they were made of wood, often from an oak tree, the wood of an oak tree. And they didn't have engines or motors the way they have today. They had big white sails and they sailed by the wind. And sometimes the sailors that sailed in those ships were known as the Oak Men. Now, there was one ship that the sailors in those days feared above all else, and that was the Ship of Bones. The Ship of Bones was a ship said to be made from the bones of all the sailors that had drowned at sea. And the Ship of Bones was said to have sails as bright and white that they could shine through anything, and no sailor wanted to meet it. Well, there's only one sailor who has ever gone on board the Ship of Bones and lived to tell the tale, and that's the tale I'm going to tell to you. His name was Bill Stoker. And Bill Stoker was a sailor on a ship called the Mayfly. And in 1784, a very long time ago, the Mayfly left the port of Portsmouth in England, bound for America, a journey that took a fair few weeks in that time. Well, for the first 3 weeks, the seas were calm and all was well. But then a storm arose, and the rain was lashing down on the decks, and the ship was getting tossed and turned all over the sea. And all the sailors got very sick, and they all went down below deck and climbed onto their bunks and tried to stop being sick, until there was only one person left out on deck, and that was the lookout. And it was his job to stay up in the crow's nest at the top of the ship and shout if any ship was seen ahead. And so one day, the sailors were all down crouching on their bunks, and a shout came from above, "Ship ahoy, ship ahoy, and it's the Ship of Bones." Well, the sailors, they were a bit scared of this ship, but they wanted to see it. And so they began clambering up onto the decks. And Bill Stoker, he didn't believe in the Ship of Bones, but he didn't want to be the only one left behind. So he clambered up on deck too. And there it was, sails shining bright white in front and not a soul on deck. But Bill Stoker, he said, "Well, if that's the Ship of Bones, I'll eat my hat." Well, no sooner had he said that than a big wave came and it crashed into him and it lifted him away up over the deck, over the railings, and smashed him down into the sea. And Bill thought he was a goner, but then another wave lifted him up and brought him and landed him down onto the deck of the Ship of Bones. But the strange thing was, as Bill Stoker looked around, the deck of the Ship of Bones was as dry as a bone. Well, Bill, he saw a figure over by the railing, and he called out, "Ahoy there, hello there." But that figure did not turn around. So Bill Stoker went over, he tapped the figure on the shoulder, and it turned round. Well, that figure did not have a face, at least not a face that you or I would know. But it stretched out a long, bony hand and said, "Welcome to the Ship of Bones, Bill Stoker." Well, Bill Stoker, he ran out of there. He ran over to the hatch. He pulled the hatch open. He jumped inside and he went down the steps into the belly of the ship. But There was a very peculiar smell in there. When he looked around, he saw that the walls were all made of bones, and then he saw lots of bony skeleton figures climbing off their bunks, and they were all stretching out hands and saying, "Welcome to the ship of bones, Bill Stoker." Well, Bill Stoker, he ran up the steps again. He opened the hatch, but the bony figure was at the top of the steps waiting to grab him. It grabbed his collar, but fortunately for Bill, his clothes were old, the collar came off, and Bill went running up that deck. He went running over to the bridge house, and there he stopped, and he breathed a moment, and he thought, there must be something these bony people are afraid of. And then he had it. He had an idea. "I know," he said. "I know what they're afraid of." And maybe you might have guessed too. Well, Bill Stoker, he began running after that bony figure, going, "Ruff, ruff, 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 ruff," barking like a dog, and that bony figure began to run away from him. It ran over to the hatch and jumped down inside. And then Bill Stoker, he dived off that ship back into the storm, but a wave lifted him up, and he came landing back on the deck of his own ship with his sailor friends all standing around. Well, Bill, he waited until after the storm had passed to tell them the story of what happened. And when he told them, do you think any of them believed a word? No, not a word. So Bill remembered what he had said, and you might remember too. He had said, "If that's their ship of bones, I'll eat my hat." So you know what he did. He ate his hat. So if you go sailing out on the high seas ever in a big ship, you just watch out for that ship of bones.